Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to review The Red Limit, The Search for the Edge of the Universe by Timothy Ferris, author of The Whole Shebang, which I will be making a reference to again later in this video. This book is, in essence, a history of astronomy in the first 8 decades of the 20th century. Originally written in 1979, it was updated in 1983, and that's what this edition is. It also has a number of portraits of famous astronomers and some excellent black and white images of galaxies and stellar phenomenon. It's fascinating to me to think that amongst some researchers in the early part of the 20th century, in the first decade or so, that there were those that thought that our Milky Way was the universe, that was it, that it was a little bit bigger, but we were the main and only stellar structure that was out there, that the stars that were in the Milky Way were all the stars, that we did not know at that time that the universe is quintillion light years in diameter, just this massive structure, just huge, and that edge is a very nebulous term. And if you're going to read this as a piece of contemporary astronomy, it's a little long in the tooth. It's a little outdated. There are better books out there, which is how I mentioned I would refer to The Whole Shebang. If you're going to read one book that deals with astronomy, cosmology, and in particular quantum mechanics, I would recommend Timothy Ferris's The Whole Shebang. However, Timothy Ferris has a wonderful writing style. It flows in a way that is rare for science writers. At this point in my life, I may go so far as to say that Timothy Ferris is the best science or hard science writer that I have ever read. He is that good. I was stunned how quickly I made my way through this book. I mean, literally, I'm like reading and looking at the page, and I'm like, I'm at 130 pages already, because it just, you don't even notice. It just flows for you. And the one nice thing, though the whole shebang covers a really large area, a lot of territory is covered in the shebang, you can't go into a great deal of depth for a lot of that. Whereas the Red Limit may be only covering a smaller area of that history. It goes much deeper. It goes much deeper. It talks about the people that did all the research, most of which were the white boys club, but there are women that were involved. There are non-white folks in here, which is pleasant. It deals with some of the big names, the names that became known in the quantum mechanics. Subatomic particle set are in here, and the fact that they were really trying to find a reconciliation between relativity and quantum mechanics, and for the most part, they couldn't. When this book was published and updated, string theory was just beginning to become known to the general community, scientific community, let alone nobody in the general public knew about superstring theory back in 1983. And he only discusses really very tangentially in the last chapter, in the last, I'd say, 5 pages of the book, does he actually start to brush against it as maybe an answer that would help bring the two, relativity and quantum mechanics, under one banner. But as a history of astronomy, how the researchers discovered the redshift, that the universe was expanding, how they used this to begin to figure out how far away objects were, what those objects were, their compositions, how they discovered spectrography, where you discern the composition of something from the light it emits. The whole idea that at one time, cutting-edge science was some poor guy wrapped in a coat, sitting in a little metal cage, strapped to the side of, a 100-inch diameter tube with a 100-inch diameter mirror at the end. You know, just pointed at the sky in the night, desperately trying to capture light and pull it in so that he can get a photograph. You know, I mean, he really does a good job of conveying what that was like. And it's an excellent read. It flows well. I truly enjoyed it. And if you are into the history of science, as opposed to, say, the most cutting-edge piece of information available to you, I would recommend, again, The Whole Shebang for that. But if you like the history, this book is a must-read. It's something that I think that anybody that is into that kind of a topic, and particularly if you have a penchant for astronomy, this is something you've got to read, really, seriously. Go out, go forth. The only thing you could do better than this, I think, is if you began to read the individual biographies of the researchers that did the work themselves, which, again, would be interesting, but would take a much longer piece of time to accomplish. So, as science, this is great writing, a good time. I enjoyed it, and I recommend it.